Oh, you hear the drum line. The juices are going. The map commercial has been released for Big Ten. Ladies and gentlemen, we're 18 days away from college football. Now, of course, when you hear this, it'll be played the following day, so 17 days. Yes, it is summer ball, all things college football coming your way with the big brains. As always, joining us, a three-headed monster. I am Sean Brace, as always. Joe Tansey, top right corner. Good evening, Joe.
What's going on? Are we betting on Olympic fencing too while we're here?
I will pass on the Olympic fencing, but synchronized
You
swimming,
are
I'm
you?
all in.
How does Sean Brace do the Olympics? By the way,
Oh, I'm dialed in.
Okay, because I know how your big brain operates.
Yeah.
And I feel like you can like compartmentalize like 7 or 8 of the like 30, however many sports there are.
That's fair, but look, as far as I'm concerned, Scotty Scheffler, the greatest Olympic.
Oh, that was incredible.
Moment from performance from so far, and I know we're not done. Long way to go, but it's been tremendous viewing, that's for sure. But I'm definitely, taking in the stuff that we normally don't, right? Like I said, the synchronized swimming, the climbing.
I know you kind of poo-pooed Gold Zone for me on Sunday.
No, only because I could not turn the golf off.
That's fair.
All right, let's keep it moving. Ryan Beef Coyle, you can't win without beef up front. 18 days, sir. How we doing?
Doing great. Summer winding down. It's funny, the last weekend when I was down the shore, I was sitting on the beach reading the magazine, and they're like, "Do you ever take a break from this?" And I was like, "No, I'm ready." Short out and ready for 18 days from now. 2 weeks from Saturday. It's gonna be awesome. That noon kickoff over in Dublin, Florida State, Georgia Tech. I'm ready to go.
Sneaky, really good game. I'm convinced myself it's going to be a really good game.
Yeah, it's going to be the greatest game of the summer. Let's go. And finally, our returning champion, the one and only Mr. Mark Henry Jr., who has laid out the way we're going to go about this episode of Summer Ball. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening. Yeah, you mentioned I have a hot take just off the top.
Give it to me.
The Big Ten Maps commercial is
I thought you were going to give me something Olympic related.
Joe Tansey. When I tell you, I have not consumed a single second of the Olympics.
That's the least surprising thing I've ever learned about you.
I mean that I have not consumed a single second of the Olympics.
He was literally snoring on the thought or on the conversation of USA basketball today.
Apparently, we did see, Mark Spears tweet out that Joel Embiid did an Anthony Edwards Three Amigos chop. That's what he did. It's not like it was a DX chop that he's been doing for 5 years. That's the only piece of Olympic thing I've seen.
Oh, man.
Is that Mark Spears tried to say Joel Embiid did Anthony Edwards move that he's been doing for 5 years. But
I do respect you, like, completely on brand. You are the absolute last person I would peg as an Olympic watcher.
Yeah, I'm so out on it. But the Big Ten Maps commercial makes it look like Nebraska and USC are next door. Like you're going, it's an hour flight from USC to Nebraska. They're getting that game in, and getting it done by dinner time. But yeah, that commercial needs to be geographically fixed. That's my take on that.
All right. Well, here's what we got. We got a ton on the plate. Of course, a lot happening in the world of college football. And with the start fast approaching on tonight's episode, you are going to hear 1 over, 1 under, and 1 juicy conference playoff future from the crew here. I have a Heisman Trophy play that I don't think many will argue about. Nice little, somewhat long shot. Definitely not viewed as a favorite. And I also have a team total under as well. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get to it. I want to open up with this. The top 25 rankings were released as far as the preseason coaches poll is concerned. No surprise there. Georgia at the top. The thing that jumps out at me the most, and Joe, I'll start with you on this one. Again, we haven't played a game. Long way to go. But the top 10, 4 SEC teams, 4 Big Ten teams, 1 independent with Notre Dame, and 1 ACC with FSU. Does the poll mean anything to you, Joe Tansey, as far as the top 10 or conference related?
Oh, it sure doesn't. I mean,
just too early.
It's just projecting. I'm not that guy who says, "Oh, well, we should wait until week 8 to put polls out." No, but I don't know. It's not going to tell us anything. We're just literally projecting, and with the way the transfer portal is now, I mean, how do you know how these teams are going to mesh, right? Like, how do you know? I guess we kind of know Ohio State's going to be pretty good because just of pure talent, but I mean, there's so many question marks you could have across the board on these teams. I guess the only thing I would say is I'd like to see one or two G5 teams at the bottom. Just make them 24 and 25.
Give them an opportunity.
Yeah, just like give them some little like preseason love. But other than that, that's kind of where I stand on that.
All right, Ryan Beef Coyle, anything for you at the top 25? Did anything jump off the page at you? Surprise? And does it mean anything to you? The reason why I asked that question is because, you got a leg up and you're already viewed. Again, we haven't played a game, so it will work itself out. But I don't know if it should mean anything a little bit more than just getting the conversation started other than, college football is here.
I definitely don't think it matters nearly as much as it did when there was the 14 playoff, because if you were kind of already up there in that top 4, as long as you were winning games, you weren't really gonna be sliding down the board. Now with the 12 team, the expanded playoff, you have more room for error and less room to kind of gripe about being at the top. But I mean, just like looking at last year's top 25 for week 1, like USC was number 6. They finished 7-6 overall last year. Like, it really doesn't mean anything, like you're saying, especially in today's day and age. It's so much projection because there's so little roster retention across the sport. But I think 1 and 2, though, was kind of interesting because I think that is a good debate amongst people that who's the best team in the country heading into the year, Georgia or Ohio State. I even saw Brett McMurphy put his top 25 pull out, and he had Oregon at number 1. So that's all kind of I got to say about it. But just another kind of talking point as we're about 3 weeks out from official games now.
Mark Henry Jr., anything different for you?
No, I mean, it's just another kind of reference point, but I would more so look at like gambling markets in terms of how I would judge teams more than the top 25.
Be nice if we had like a college football Ken Palm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
It's not too late to start that. All right, let's keep it moving then, since that doesn't mean anything. And of course, as Beef pointed out, the teams at the top, as far as with the Georgia coming in at first place, getting the 46 top first place votes, Ohio State 7, Texas getting 1, Michigan getting 1, and that's the only first place votes. Is there any other teams that you think are deserving of a first place vote at this point in time? Mark Henry Jr., back to you.
I think there's such a clear top 4 going into the year with Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas. And then I think you could really make a case for like any order of 5 through 9, or even more than that. But I think like Penn State, Ole Miss, Missouri, Alabama, Notre Dame. I'm sure I'm missing a couple teams, but I think they're kind of all in that next tier, and I wouldn't really care where you threw them. But yeah, I don't really think any team outside of that top 4 deserves a top spot or vote there.
Ryan Beef Coyle, back to you.
I was a little surprised to see Bama come in there at number 5. I thought they probably would have been towards the back half, 7, 8, 9, 10-ish, just with all the changes that went on this offseason. Not saying I disagree with it, but that was just certainly something that kind of stuck out to me. But, 1 and 2 there is the clear cut for me. And then I think there's a step back once you get to Oregon even. I think that 1-2 gap with Ohio State and Georgia, whoever you have first, I don't have a dead set opinion on at this time, but I'd say those 2, and then there's a gap before you start getting into your next group of teams.
All right. Well, Joe, we know where you stand on that, so I won't come back to you. Instead, I'll just change the topic. Pretty lackluster start. Bad job by me to open up with that question. Damn. Not kidding. All right, let's get on over. We'll push Pitbull to the side and FIU, which is just fantastic. Who's the official entrepreneur of FIU athletics. Nice work there, Pitbull. Let's talk about Jim Harbaugh, the NCAA allegations. I get it. It's what's known. But if people are going to refer to this as the biggest cheating scandal in college football history, is that factual or not, Joe?
I don't even know if it is or not.
So if it is, my point is, if that is how if that is going to be the line for a lot of people out there. And I'm not saying it is. I've seen it from a few people. Of course, there's been a ton of cheating scandals. We've seen people or SMU get the death sentence, so on and so forth. That's just the top of the list. But if that's the case, shouldn't this be just a little bit bigger as far as the way we view it, right? Like, ho hum, they cheated last 3 years, 50 plus times, whatever. And then, of course, they win a national championship. But Jim Harbaugh never lied.
So I guess here's where I stand on it. So Harbaugh has been a good coach, a great coach, anywhere he's gone, right? Whether it's San Diego, Stanford, the 49ers, Michigan, and I would probably put good money that the Chargers get turned around pretty quickly. Maybe not this year, but within 2 to 3 years there.
I'm on the under 9, so hopefully not this year.
Yeah, I think they're going to take some time to adjust to Harbaugh. But, I mean, does Michigan still win that national championship if Connor Stallions doesn't exist? Most likely, yes. I think that's kind of what everybody's looking at with this thing is, yeah, look, it's a black eye. Harbaugh got suspended, all that, but they had the best team last year. I mean, they were beating everybody, and they were pretty damn close to it the year before. I mean, the style of play just wore down teams. It was perfectly executed, and I mean, I don't know, like it kind of just is what it is to me. Like if it was a drastic jump from year to year, right? And so they maybe they gained 5-6 wins, something like that, and won the national championship. I guess maybe then I could be like, meh, but I don't know. Like to me, it does nothing. To me, it does nothing. Harbaugh's still going to win regardless.
To be
Mark
fair,
Henry Jr. disagrees.
The team that they lost to in the playoffs, how did the team they lost to in the playoffs fare in the next game?
Pretty bad.
The year before. TCU lost 65-7 after they beat Michigan. So to be like there was no level up, I get that they had a successful season, no doubt about it. They had a good year the year before. They lost to a team that went on to lose 65-7 to the team.
But does that discredit their entire previous season, though?
I think that it's a reference point when you're talking about them being the best in the sport. But honestly, a lot of what happened last year with Michigan winning the title, I think had less to do with Connor Stallions and it had more to do with Georgia not showing up to the SEC championship and losing to Alabama, which got Alabama into the dance and kept Georgia out of the dance. I think Georgia was the best team last year, but Georgia didn't make the playoff because they lost to Alabama. So, putting all that aside,
yep.
The Michigan thing, I'm not as willing to be like, no matter what, they would have won the championship last year. I think it's a pretty massive black eye. Harbaugh left. I think that kind of tells you everything you need to know about the situation, that he didn't stick it out there. But taking that out of it, I don't really care anymore. Like, I don't want them to do anything. I don't want to hear about it. Like, what are you going to take the title away? Are you going to vacate the wins? It's like the Men in Black, like the light that they flash to make you forget everything. It's like, unless you can take away all the memories of those Michigan fans, then it doesn't really matter. Like, they enjoyed the season happened, the championship happened. So all this stuff, like, I always hate NCAA sanctions or anything like that. It's a nonsense topic for times like the summer. But I'm a little bit less willing to be like, yada, 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 a cheating scandal. That's the little difference, I'll say.
All right. Beef, over to you. The biggest cheating scandal in college football history so far. Sounds like, I don't want to hear about it anymore. Just move on. Let's go. Last year was last year. Where do you stand on it?
I agree with Mark with the point of with the sanctions. Like, all right, if it was actually Harbaugh leading the way, he's in the NFL, more likely than not, never returning to the college game again. He won't be affected by it. The only people that could be affected by it are players and coaches that weren't even part of the team going forward. Like, if a ruling does come down, I don't expect it to be probably until at least next year, maybe the year after. Who knows with how long the NCAA takes. But half of or more than half of that Michigan team from last year, by the time these sanctions get put down, it won't even be them. I mean, it's not the greatest.
Which is the biggest BS thing the NCAA always does is the kids 3-4 years down the line who have nothing to do with it are the ones who get punished. If you're gonna launch an investigation and do all of this, you have enough resources to get it done within the year. That way the proper people can be punished. And I guess that's also why I'm kind of like poo-pooing it, is because I know the NCAA, they're going to drag their feet. They're going to do this years-long investigation. And by the time they come up with a penalty, there's going to be very few, if any, players left from that team. Like it doesn't make sense to me to punish anyone in the future for people in the past mistakes when it comes to college football.
It's not the greatest analogy, but you look at what they did to like Penn State.
Exactly.
Whatever was happening there was happening in the 90s. You were taking away like football from kids that were in the late 20 or the early 2010s. Like it's just stupid with the way that they handle things. But you can look at it though at the same time and be like, all right, Michigan, or was it the Big Ten suspended them, or Michigan did the last 3 games or 4 games in the regular season, and that included the Penn State game and the Ohio State game. So that's a pretty big, lofty punishment. And Harbaugh didn't even coach the first 2 games of the year, at least the first game of the year, because
LV and
because of the burger incident. So the head coach didn't even coach like half the year, and they still, push them around. You win the game up at the line of scrimmage, not I think on all the play calls. Certainly that helps from time to time, but
run.
Michigan just pushed around teams from start to finish last year, and that's plain and simple.
To be fair, they also played 2 good teams on their entire schedule last year. So that's kind of it made it a pretty easy run, and then they got Washington in the championship instead of like a Georgia. There's a lot of what ifs you can play on it. I do think they nailed it with the point of I always hate penalizing like future kids who go. It was like, why put Christian Hackenberg behind like a bunch of walk-ons because Jerry Sandusky had a horrible criminal. Well, it's just, I don't know. It's a whole.
Oh, please continue on that Penn State point. Love
yeah. No, but my point is just like I never understand penalizing like taking recruits away and like doing the bowl bans. It's just
the NCAA is just very stupid.
If they wanted to like. The one thing I will say is like this reports that's coming out and they're leaking like stuff that's coming out. And it's like, it seems like the scandal was exactly what we thought it was during the season last year. And it was a top down thing. And he was texting the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator. And you can see on the sideline, they're changing the calls. Like it's pretty, I do think a lot of people in the media are yada-ing it. And it's like, unlike anything we've ever seen, or unlike anything anyone's ever really been caught for, in terms of the comprehensive nature.
Astros.
Yes, and that's where I brought that up.
I meant football. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and of course, look, it's happening in no matter the sport, right? We just had a soccer coach for Canada flying drones, and then you got Tyler Adams, who's a USA player, who says everybody does it.
It's not cheating until you get caught.
Yeah,
it's Spygate.
Exactly.
And we can't go back and change any of it.
No,
exactly. It's just
game's over by then.
It means a little something. I think we're all in agreement that they were the most dominant team last year. And I'm not trying to say I disagree with anything, but these are the facts, right? And you're going to hear about this a lot as well. Hopefully these numbers are correct as I say that. Apparently he was 49-26 before the cheating scandal started, right? We all know that. And then a 40-3 once it started. So that encompasses a lot more than just last year's dominance. I'm not going to deny last year they were the best team, and I don't give a damn. Even if the other teams had their plays, they were hard to stop. But 40-3, that's a long damn time.
Apparently, the Netflix documentary is going to point out basically that TCU basically tricked Michigan into thinking that they had TCU's calls, and that TCU changed all their calls the week of. And that Michigan was making mistakes based on what they thought the calls were in the game. So this was like a pretty open thing that I think coaches knew about the year before, that this was, I think, a pretty different type of cheating than we've really seen since Spygate, really.
Yeah.
I mean, to the record point, I know that he was at Michigan longer, but that was also the trend that he got significantly better at every. Now look, it's a different span of years. He was at Michigan much longer, but I mean, Stanford, he flipped them from 4-8 to 12-1 in 4 years. He won 11 games twice at the FCS level. So, did it maybe have something to do with it? Sure. But it also kind of speaks to what he's done program building wise that those records were like that.
All right. Excellent stuff. Good conversation across the board. Michigan, you get to keep your national championship according to the brains over here on Summer Ball.
Hey,
All right.
if Marcus Freeman wants to run a cheating scandal, win a title, and then go to the NFL next year, I'm totally down for it. Let me just say that up front. I want it. Put it in the contract.
All right, let's hit on this quickly, and then I want to get to the plays, the totals for unders and overs, and one juicy play as well. Beef, I'm coming to you on this one. What is up with your boy Dylan, quarterback for Nebraska? What's going on there? Little Mahomes miniature, man. Like this was, yeah, but he's got some riz, as the kids say. How good is this kid? What's the story that he ended up in Nebraska, and what do you think the future holds for him?
Yeah, so according to ESPN's rankings, the number 3 overall quarterback in this past recruiting class was originally an Ohio State commit, flipped to Georgia, and it was really late in the game. I think it was almost May. I'm pretty sure it was at least April when he eventually then flips to Nebraska. His uncle is the offensive line coach there. Mm-hmm. And I think he saw a path to go there and kind of start right away. Ohio State, you're not going there playing this year. Georgia, he wasn't going there and playing this year. So there's a path for him to be a Big Ten starter right away. A little bit worrisome news came out today. Nebraska's left tackle tore his ACL. So they're going to have an inexperienced left tackle now protecting him. That makes me a little bit worried about that situation. But he's got game. He's a pocket passer. And, you know, there's the Mahomes comparison. Where's the number? Has the haircut. He throws with the crazy arm angles. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. It's definitely going to be a big adjustment, stepping up from Georgia high school football, which I heard he played in one of the more competitive leagues in the entire state, but still going to Nebraska. But that's a Nebraska squad that led the country in turnovers last year, I believe. I think that was the stat.
It can't be worse than Jeff Sims.
Yeah, it can't be worse than Jeff Sims. Like they lost 4 games by exactly 3 points. Mm-hmm. And they turned the ball over 15 times in those 4 games. And they went 5-7. You know, mm-hmm. you flip 2 of those, you're at least 7-5. Nebraska, too, one of the more surprising things when doing research on them this offseason, hasn't gone bowling since 2016. I think there's a path that they start out 7-0 going into the Ohio State game, and they're bowl eligible before that even happens. So Raiola is going to be a big part of that. They haven't really officially named him the starter, but I'd be absolutely shocked if he wasn't.
How about this? I'll be surprised if they're not 7-0.
Yeah.
That's how easy this schedule is. Like they have such a runway here. It's UTEP at home, Colorado at home, Northern Iowa at home, Illinois, who's projected to be one of the worst teams in the Big Ten at home, Purdue, who's projected to be the worst team in the Big Ten on the road, Rutgers at home, at Indiana. That is just remarkably easy. And I know that the natural inclination is, oh, well, they're Nebraska. They'll drop one or they'll figure out a way to disappoint. I'm never the guy who's in on Nebraska. I think they're going to be 7-0 going into that Ohio State game.
That's incredible work by an AD. And this is a schedule that obviously gets made years in advance, but that's incredible work by an AD, knowing that you need 3 or 4 wins, you need confidence boosting wins before you get into conference play. That's an excellent job by an AD putting together a schedule that is just full of cupcakes. Like, bravo. That's how it should be done with a program like Nebraska, where they were a few years ago.
As I'm scrambling, and as always, here we go. Team total as far as wins are concerned for this upcoming season for Nebraska.
7.5.
Yeah. 7.5. I got to make the playoff at plus 850 on DraftKings Sportsbook.
That's not happening.
To win the conference 55-1.
It's also not happening.
To win college football 200-1. They got 17 returning starters, 9 on offense, 8 on defense.
Take one on offense.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because
well, I mean,
I read. Go ahead, Joe.
I look it's front loaded. You'll get bowl eligible. That's the bare minimum goal for Matt Rule. But then, I mean, that's a gauntlet after Ohio State. Look, UCLA obviously is supposed to be at the bottom of the Big Ten, but you're coming off of a wear and tear game against Ohio State. Mm-hmm. That's your classic you know, I don't want to call it letdown because they're not going to beat Ohio State, but you know what I mean, off of a big game. And then at USC, Wisconsin, Iowa, those are 3 teams that are going to beat you up. So you need that cushion of the 7 game, right? Because it looks really easy at the start, but man, it looks really brutal at the end. And then that's what kind of makes you think about the win total. Should they get there? Most likely. But it makes you think just a bit, because if they do slip up once and are somehow 6-1, I mean, your win total is kind of toast.
I really don't think 9 to 10 wins is out of the question. Like if they,
I'm not saying that it isn't. I'm just saying
they can't afford any slip ups too
right.
at the beginning.
You need to bank those 7.
Yeah, but then you get to those last 5 games. Like you win 3 of those games, you get to 10 wins. Like I don't think it's out of the question that they'll be favored against UCLA. Interested to see what Wisconsin is, but that game's at Nebraska. I would assume they're home there. USC is a team that I'll be talking about later, but not sure what we're seeing out of them. And then Iowa, that's always a coin flip kind of toss-up game. You chalk up that Ohio State game. You just got to win 2 or 3 of those last 4 to get 9 to 10 wins. I think it's certainly on the table for them.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think they'll be 7-0. I think that UCLA might be the worst team in the Big Ten, actually. So I think that's 8. And then you're sitting there. You need to win one of those other 4 games to get to 9 wins. And I think you get to 9 wins if you're Nebraska with a freshman quarterback, Matt Rule's second year. I think you're feeling like better than almost any other program in the country about the direction of.
I think if you get to 8, you feel fantastic.
Yeah.
He said in an interview with Joel Klatt, he says, I expect, good to great.
Year 3.
Yep. And then our jump from year 1 to year 2, my biggest jump from year 2 to year 3.
Mm-hmm.
If he can get to 8 to 9 this year, he's setting them up, I think, for double-digit wins next year and competing, at the top there in the Big Ten. After, I know Ohio State will reload, but after all they lose, Michigan, who knows what, if they're losing scholarships or something, Nebraska could be right there in the conversation at the top of the Big Ten before we know it.
That's how you're supposed to program build. Yeah. And that's why Matt Rule is one of the best at it. That's why he was a home run hire.
No, you're not denying. You're not lying there. But that is a hell of a conference to accomplish that. But we're going to learn a lot more about this conference this upcoming season. I had so much more I want to get to, and hopefully we can hit these trends on the way out. I definitely want us to pick our favorite Pitbull song too. Some people say that, I'm a little biased towards Dolly. But let's go ahead and do this, boys. Come on. Favorite bets. And shout out Mark Henry Jr. You can go first. We'll do snake. We'll go around the horn. Snake draft. Come back around. Let's start with the overs. All right. Team total over. Your favorite as week 0, is approaching here for all things college football. Mark Henry Jr., your favorite over. What do you got for us, sir?
I really struggle. I went back and forth between 2 Big 12 overs, but I'm going with Kansas. I'm going with Kansas over 8 flat. Usually you get the half, but you have the chance of a push here. Their non-conference is Lindenwood, UNLV, and Illinois. So
that's a college basketball schedule.
Exactly. I think you're starting 3-0 out of the conference pretty easily. And you are avoiding some of the other expected top teams of the Big 12. This comes down to Jalen Daniels' injury. Last year, they were able to win 9 games even without Jalen Daniels, and 3 of their 4 losses came by a touchdown or less. So I just think Lance Leipold is one of the best coaches in the country. I think he has him going in the right direction. He did really well in the transfer portal, and maybe even bigger than their best player. Obviously, all the focus is going to be on Jalen Daniels when he plays. He is an electric factory, one of the most fun players in the country. Hopefully his back cooperates. But Devin Neal, their running back, returning this year, had 1,280 yards last year. He's one of the very best running backs in the country. So even if Jalen Daniels misses a game or 2 here or there, I think Devin Neal is the guy who can kind of shoulder the load of that offense. But I think there's no indication that Daniels is hurt right now going into the year. But we saw last year they kind of lied about that injury all year long. They were acting like he was going to come back, and then he just never really came back. But if Jalen Daniels is healthy, I think you could start talking about some lofty conference and playoff futures with Kansas potentially.
Yeah, the Big 12 is wide open.
Yeah.
My only pushback and very minimum is that as I pull it up, 12 games in 2 seasons. That's a pretty big if to rely on him, right? A little bit.
I think it was 10 and then 2, right? Or 9 and then 3. So he played a lot of 2 years ago. But last year he barely played. Yeah.
Ryan Beef Coyle, over to you, sir. Your favorite over for this upcoming college football season?
I'm going down to Blacksburg, Virginia, and I'm going with Virginia Tech over 8.5 wins. Looking at their schedule, I think they will be favored in at least 10 of their 12 games. So that lines up right there for it. I think they could potentially even be favored in 11 games. I think the only game that they won't be favored for sure is at Miami on September 27th. Clemson comes towards the beginning of November to Virginia Tech. Interested to see what Clemson is at that time, but I could definitely see Virginia Tech being favored in that game as well. I love the way that they came on at the end of the year last year, won 3 of 4 to end the season, averaged 43 points per game over those last 4 games. And when these guys won last year, they were dominant. Went 7-6, but in those 7 wins, average margin of victory 23.7 points per game, and in those 7 victories as well, they held their opponents to only 17.6 points per game. So when these guys were good, they were really good. Kyron Drones is back, going to be full-time starter this year. I'm really excited about this team, and you get them at plus money there at 8.5. I was surprised to see it that high. I think some of my friends actually got it at 8 earlier in the season. So like Mark was saying, you get the potential push, but 8.5 at plus money. I think it's plus 105 right now. So going down to Virginia Tech, I think they're like a Nebraska type program where this might not be the year that they fully break through, but they're coming and it looks like a good direction for a team to get back to kind of college football prominence.
Yeah, I'll take them with the 13 at Vandy week 1 right now.
10-1 to win the ACC.
It's also wide open.
Yeah, and if they're I have them going 10-2. I have them losing the Clemson game and losing the Miami game. I think Clemson still might just have a little bit more talent, but I could see a scenario certainly where they're 11-1. I mean, the schedule is really easy, non-con as well. Like Marshall, they start Vandy, Marshall, Old Dominion, Rutgers. I see
they've always played cupcakes. If my memory's right, Beamer didn't exactly schedule the best of teams.
And you have to go to Miami and you get Clemson at home, but you avoid Florida State. Your other road games are Syracuse, Duke, and Stanford. None of those squads are really lighting much fear into many people's eyes this year. So 10-2 is my projection.
Also avoid Louisville as well. And I don't know where we stand on SMU, but SMU as well. So the big one.
Look at you, Mr. Segway.
Right. You're like, oh, is that what?
Look at you, Sean Brace. We haven't seen each other in person in 4 months, and you're still teeing me up telepathically. You are a beautiful human being. Ponies over 8.
Ooh, all right. Please do tell. Joe Tansey, your favorite over is SMU over 8, and why is that, sir?
I don't know if it's my favorite over. I mean, I have far less time than my fellow college football nerds here to go pick every game. I know Mark's done that about 4 times over.
Playoff predictors website, man.
Just this month, you've done like 10 different predictions on the Sun Belt.
I love it. I love it.
But look, SMU, their offense is incredible. They're coming into a new conference, which is weak. Like, let's be honest. The ACC, I guess we're maybe talking Florida State, Miami, and Clemson, and you could apply some question marks to a lot of them. I know Virginia Tech got a few first place votes in the preseason poll from the media that cover the ACC. The reason I look at SMU is their schedule's soft. I mean, let's just call it what it is. BYU and TCU come in during non-conference play, but there's a week in between those games. Who knows exactly what we're going to see out of those? And I think at home, SMU can handle them with their offense. The road schedule doesn't scare me. It's Louisville, Stanford, Duke, and Virginia. I don't think we're expecting anything out of Stanford. I'm definitely not expecting anything out of Virginia. So if you just strictly win your home games, you just need to win one on the road to put yourself in a position to at least push. I mean, I'm kind of very bullish on SMU. I think everybody should at least be bullish on one team in the ACC. For a lot of people, it's Virginia Tech. Some people are bullish on NC State. For me, it's SMU. Somebody has to emerge from that pack of, I don't want to call them nobodies, but pack of mediocrity. Like it just has to happen mathematically.
And why not be the team that you
That
can
no
make
one
the case.
knows.
Well, they went 11-2 last year. Transition, a lot of players coming back, but of course you touched on it. Preston Stone,
Yep,
150-1 to win the Heisman Trophy.
I would
Joe,
get that carried away.
All right, just wasn't sure. All right, obviously he has a ton of wide receivers back. All right, I think I heard that as well a couple weeks ago.
And you don't, even in a system like that, it's kind of plug and play, right? It's not the air raid, but it's like a variation of it. And I think that's when you have these pass heavy offenses, if you have that good of a quarterback, he's going to make everyone around him much better. And you look across the ACC, there's a lot of question marks at quarterback. There's just a lot of question marks in general. So honestly, my betting advice for the ACC is find somebody beneath whatever you consider a top 2 or a top 3 and just have some fun with them. And whether it's Virginia Tech, SMU, NC State, whoever it may be, outside of the FSU, Miami, Clemson triumvirate there, so somebody's going to make some noise in the ACC. And to me, looking on paper, and I think it's probably going to be SMU.
All right, let's stay with you, Joe. Let's get to the unders. One under that has your attention, your favorite under that has your attention for the upcoming college football season. Where are we going?
Put me on the spot. I have to pull it up.
I told you snake.
I'm actually going to stay in the ACC.
Okay.
I'll go NC State under 8.5.
Ooh, Wolfpack down on the pack this year.
It's not that
pumping them up.
It's not that I'm down on them.
It's just the number.
I think it's just the number for me. Okay. Look, the end of the year, that 2-game end of the year trip, you have at Georgia Tech, at North Carolina. I know North Carolina is a rivalry game, but those games are going to be tight. Like I think Georgia Tech is going to be a step up from last year. And that's a home game Thursday night for Georgia Tech there. At Clemson kind of scares me for NC State, and they play at Tennessee on a neutral site Labor Day weekend. And I think I'd probably lean Tennessee. For me, I just think if you're at 8.5, you got to be certain that you can get to 9. And to me, I'm just not quite certain they can get to 9. The home schedule is very fluffy. It's beautiful for them. But, I mean, what's this? It's a 12-game schedule, right? They got to win one of their road games or beat Tennessee on a neutral field. And, I mean, you're looking at 7 true home games. I just saw this on DraftKings, so let me pull this up. DraftKings actually has a regular season home wins prop for college football this season.
They're going deep.
I would actually look at NC State for that.
Carter Finley wins.
You're over 6.5, which means they have to win all of their home games. But if you look at their home games, it's pretty light. It's Western Carolina, La Tech, Northern Illinois, Wake, Hughes, Stanford, and Duke. You would think a team like that is definitely second tier in the ACC can at least pull those wins off. So I think if you're betting NC State, look, it's obviously a bigger risk factor, right? Because you literally have the smallest margin of error ever. But I think that's maybe a way you can middle it. I'm not fully convinced that you can get to 9 with that.
All right. Beef, over to you. Favorite under.
So when I go through and kind of do these projections, I don't look at the win total on DraftKings first. I go through, do my projection, and then I look, and I'm like, most of the time they're close. Like today I did Tennessee. Their over-under was 8.5. I had them going 8-4. So I feel good when I'm kind of close. This one I was way off on, and that's USC. Their win total sits at a surprising 7.5. Like, I feel like you hear USC, you would expect like a 9 or so, 8.5 maybe. 7.5, I got the under there plus money. I have USC tanking this year in the Big Ten. I have them only going 5-7, and I think it could be a really ugly start to their run in the Big Ten here. I could see a scenario where the end of September they're 1-3. First game they play LSU on a neutral. I think LSU is going to bully them at the line of scrimmage. Then they have Utah State. Should roll in that game. But then week 3 they go this is week 4, actually. They have their bye after the Utah State game, but they have to go to Michigan. I'm not that high on Michigan this year, but I think that they get pushed around in that game as well. Wisconsin is like the wild card team in the Big Ten for me. They're still going to have good guys up front in the trenches. There's a scenario where I see them finishing the month of September 1-3. This is the first year Lincoln Riley. It doesn't have a stud number 1 overall pick quarterback, whether it was Williams, Kyler, or Baker running the show for him. The defense last year, I don't even think it's so much the talent, but a lot of it was just effort and just kind of motor and their ability to tackle. They went out and made a bunch of major changes, but they did so the year before, and we saw them really bottom out last year. So I think they have a major adjustment this year to the Big Ten, and Lincoln Riley's going to really have to kind of evaluate how he builds a roster going forward. But there's not a game on the schedule besides that Utah State game in week 2 that I look at and I'm like, guaranteed easy win. There's going to be some fights. Like they have some weird ones. They have to go cross country to Maryland. It's just going to be a weird season, and I don't feel very confident with Miller Moss leading the way as of right now. We only have 1 game kind of sample size for him. So USC under 7.5 wins. I got them all the way at 5-7. I think it's a bad year out in LA for Lincoln Riley.
That's a very welcome to the Big Ten schedule.
Yeah. Like there's going to be and you still have the Notre Dame game as well. Like they're going to be outplayed in the trenches mostly every single week, and you don't have a number 1 overall pick quarterback to make up for it. They're going to have some kind of what the F moments.
The big difference from this year to last year is that they have DeAnthony Lynn from UCLA. His first year as defensive coordinator, he took UCLA's defense from 85th to I think top 15. So they're hoping that they can get a little bit of that magic going from, and I think USC was even lower than 85th. So that's the whole.
They were below. They were.
They can't be any worse.
No. They were bottom 100 in rushing, passing, scoring, and total defense last year.
By the way, how many people are going to bet the over on that LSU USC game solely based off of their defenses from last year? Yep. Guarantee you, there's at least like a 10% of people that will do that.
Both quarterbacks had the crazy bowl games, right, with Nussmeier and Moss.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you just watch bowl games.
Mark Henry Jr., over to you as far as the under is concerned, but USC. Preseason ranked 23rd in the coaches poll there, so something to keep our eye on there.
That's a reputation.
Yep,
they were ranked 6th last year.
Ooh. All right, Mark Henry Jr., your favorite under, sir?
I'm going to the ACC, and I've talked about this before, but Virginia under 4.5. I love this. This is by far my favorite college football bet of the offseason. Only 3 wins in each of the last 2 years. The non-conference, you're going to beat Richmond, but then you've got Maryland. You're probably going to lose that one. You've got Coastal, which I don't think will be a gimme. New coach, new quarterback, so probably easier than years past. And you've got at Notre Dame, which I don't think they've got a chance at. But really, the craziest part of their schedule is they close the year with Louisville at home and then 4 straight road games at Clemson, at North Carolina, at Pitt, at Notre Dame. They come home for SMU, and then they play Virginia Tech on the road. That is just an insane last 6 games. It's basically like the hardest possible stretch you could have in the ACC. I mean, Pitt's not that good, but you're still going there on the road. People mentioned close game losses with them. I think they had 4 or 5 of them. They also got blown out 4 times and won 2 close games out of their 3 wins too. So it's like, yeah, they lost a couple close games. They probably went like 2-4 in close games. I don't think that's like they're not going to go 5-1 this year or something like that. So yeah, it ranked dead last year in the ACC in defense. And it's funny, they only return like 4 starters on offense. They return all these starters on defense, but it's like, is that a good thing? They were giving up like 38 a game. Like, I don't know if you want to return those guys, return them somewhere else. I don't know.
That's a, we know you're going to be bad schedule. We don't care about you.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Before we get to our juicy plays, I will give my one play. I like the UCLA under 5 for everything discussed. Lost the defensive coordinator. Chip Kelly exits a little late in the ball game. You know how it works. I'm sure nobody wanted to go there. Probably lost a couple players, and I have no confidence. The coach Foster gets out there. Who knows? He might be an unbelievable motivator behind the scenes. I'm going to roll the dice that he struggles in year 1. Also, the schedule: Oregon, non-conference LSU, Oregon, Penn State, Nebraska, Iowa, UCLA, USC. So I'll take the under 5 on that.
Whoever made their schedule has some sort of deal with Delta or one of the airlines. Their schedule maker, their team administrator needs like miles for like a honeymoon, because no way on God's green earth do you do at Hawaii, then home for a week, then at LSU. Like the Big Ten schedule is what it is. You can't control that. But I mean, somebody's racking up some air miles for the team there.
All right, coming down the home stretch here, boys. Let's go ahead. Give me 30 seconds on your juicy play. It could be anything, Heisman, conference play, conference playoff, whatever it is, but just give us a juicy take, juicy play on the way out here. 30 seconds each. Mark Henry Jr., all you.
Missouri plus 2,300 to win the SEC, so 23-1. They play at Texas A&M and they play at Alabama. They do not play Georgia. They do not play Texas. They do not play Ole Miss. They do not play LSU. They do not play Tennessee. They don't even play Kentucky. They get Auburn and Oklahoma at home. Those are both teams I'm kind of lower on than consensus anyway. Outside of that, not too brutal of a schedule. I think you can make an argument they have the best player in the country in Luther Burden at wide receiver. I think Brady Cook is one of the 5 to 7 best quarterbacks in the country. So I just think this is this year's Washington. I think Missouri is 2024 Washington.
I don't think I've heard too much about the quarterback, to be honest with you. Obviously, a wide receiver, one of the best players, if not the best player in the game. All right, over to you, Beef. Your juicy play.
I'm going to go with Oklahoma State to make the playoff at plus 800. They're plus 750 to win the Big 12. I'm just rolling with the plus 800 there because it's basically another chance there with the at-large. But a team that returns 19 total starters, I believe it was from the year before. 18. 9 on offense, 8 on defense, and their punter returns as well. But as I was talking about with USC schedule, when I look at Oklahoma State schedule, there's not a single game where I'm like, oh, chalk that up as a surefire loss. Toughest game is probably at Kansas State. They could win that game. Kansas State, I'm really high on Avery Johnson, but a young quarterback. And Oklahoma State gets to host Utah. I think most people are saying that these are the 3 best teams in the entire Big 12. I think 10-2 to 11-1 is a reasonable expectation. 11-1 will definitely get them in, especially if they win the Big 12 title. But 11-1, losing the Big 12 title, they could still maybe get one of those at large. So plus 800, all 5 starting returning offensive linemen, 9 guys who have played meaningful snaps on the offensive line, and they return the best running back in the country in Ollie Gordon. I'm going to take a swing there. Maybe they get that 11 or 12 spot if they don't get that top 4 spot from winning the Big 12.
I just had to crack up with Van Gundy going, you know what his punishment's going to be? I might run him 40 times in the first half.
Yeah, just keep Gundy off the roads.
Yeah.
Yeah, good grief. Hey, Joe Tansey, close up shop with us here, your juicy play.
I'll zag a little bit from what you guys have been talking about, and I'll go into week 1 and say Hawaii plus 390.
Ooh,
That's
against
an
UCLA?
outright
Against UCLA.
I like that.
Woo!
What about plus 38 or minus 38 against Del State in week 0?
Well, that's part to do with it, right? Hawaii gets 1 game under their belt. UCLA, with absolutely zero expectation, is going over to the island. Their win totals are exactly the same. I think it's Hawaii is at 5, but we say UCLA was 5. So everybody, in terms of where they stand with records, kind of the same. I'm just gonna throw that out there. It's a national TV game. It's on CBS. I'll dip my feet in the water there with the Rainbow Warriors at plus 390 in week 1.
Love that. They should go back to that. They're not the Rainbow Warriors, right? They never went back to that. They should go back.
I know Timmy Chang's the coach now, right?
Nice.
Former
all
Eagles, great.
Yeah, I will. I don't understand the assignment very well. So my juicy play wasn't.
You never have.
No, yeah, wasn't a conference play, but it was a Heisman Trophy play. And Beef knows where I'm going. I'm all Nico'd up, man. I love the kid from Tennessee. Of course, one of the top recruits in the game. Had the opportunity to watch him. We all watched him go up against that Iowa defense in the bowl game. Looked phenomenal running the football. Extremely young, thin, or skinny, but man, I'm a sucker for those highlight films. So 16-1, Tennessee's QB, Rocky Top. Let's go.
Can you pronounce his last name?
As I'm looking at it, it is Iyamaleavia. Leava. Leava?
I think it's kind of like Uyangalele, like it's like Yamaleva. There's like a way to say it specifically.
I think it's EMI Eleva or something like that.
Yeah.
We sound like Mike Gundy when he gets pulled over by the cops.
I will say that's a much better effort than I thought you would have.
All right. Well, I had it in front of me, so I was
he's the right pick, by the way. He's my.
That is a good pick.
Well. Ooh, 16-1. You're backing me. All right, I like it. If
Jalen Daniels doesn't stay healthy.
Fantastic stuff, boys. I can't thank you guys enough here on a Wednesday night or Tuesday night. Excuse me. If you're hearing this, it's a Wednesday afternoon. Once again, Joe Tansey, Ryan Beef Coyle, Mark Henry Jr. can all be found on socials. Be sure to catch anything and everything from the Gambler Gang at foxphlgambler.com. If you missed anything, subscribe to the YouTube page. We're giving away a lot of stuff this football season. Free tickets, games, concerts, you name it, all that and more. Subscribe and follow us on socials. Once again, at foxphlgambler.com.